Hi and welcome to my channel. Let's understand the concepts. And this is my first lecture for y'all. Today we are going to learn about sources of history. This chapter is very common to SSC board students. You may find this chapter in all history textbook from standard 6 to 8. So now let's begin with our session. Before we move on to sources of history, first let us understand what is history. History is a collection of all events that occurred in the past. The study of history, however, is the study of change over time. Historians attempt to provide some understanding of this change. The process by which historians do this is known collectively as historical methodology. Historians use the historical method to gather evidence of past events, evaluate the evidence, and interpret what the evidence reveals about things that occurred in history. Now let's understand whether history is a science. The study of history is not a science. However, many aspects of the historical methodology are scientific in their approach, requiring analysis, critical evaluation, and critical thinking. Ultimately, however, interpreting the past is subject to the bias of the individual making the conclusions. What is historical evidence? Historical evidence is anything directly related to some event, person, or period of the past. It reveals information that might help us better understand what happened previous to our examination. The first thing a historian does is research for and collect a variety of evidence concerning the specific history that they are studying. When they do so, they must consider which evidence is coming from primary sources and which evidence is coming from secondary sources. When we talk about evidence, we get this evidence from two different types of sources, namely primary sources and secondary sources. Now let's see it in more deep. What is primary source? Primary sources were eyewitnesses of the event, meaning that they were a part of the actual history. These sources were present during the time the event occurred. What is secondary sources? Secondary sources have come to us through some kind of intermediary. They are not directly associated with the history we are studying. So, they were not an eyewitness of history. This can be the interpretation of a writer or author about the past event. When we talk about the sources, there is one more thing that play an important role to give or pass on the information. That is oral tradition. Oral tradition is passing stories or information down from one generation to the next. It also plays an important role in preserving the culture and history. Now, when we talk about primary source, it has 5 elements. First one, written source. This can include things like letter, diaries, journal, speeches, documents. Second one is printed material. This is created or published at the time when the event occurred. For example, books, newspapers, printed documents, maps. The third one is visual sources. This include photographs, artwork such as drawing, painting, sculptures created at that time. Fourth one is audio sources. Any type of audio recording made at that time to study that event is known as audio sources, such as tape recording, digital audio files, interview, or speeches. Fifth one is the physical sources. This include artifacts recovered or discovered from the archaeological digs. These can be objects related to or used during the historical period. Now let's see some of the examples. As you can see, written source is written or printed. Visual source can be any monument like Taj Mahal, Red Fort, or any cave paintings, which we can see. Printed material includes newspapers, books, articles, essay written by someone at that period of time, or poems written by a poet. Physical source includes artifacts excavated during the archaeological site. Audio source can be the interview or the speech by great leaders. Now let's focus on the secondary source. Secondary source also has three elements. First one is published source. This includes book, article or essays published by historian or anyone who is writing about a historical event that they did not witness. Second one is a visual source. It includes the artwork created by someone to show a historical event that they did not witness. A video about a historical event that is not actually a recording of the event itself. Visual sources also include many historical films, documents which depict the actual history of our country. Third one is audio source. It includes podcasts about past event or song about past event. The basic difference between primary source and the secondary source is that primary sources were the eyewitness, they were the part of the actual history or the event that occurred at that time, whereas secondary source is an interpretation of the past event by some writer, archaeologist, historian, or an author. Now let's see why oral tradition is considered as one of the sources. For many society that does not have a written language or do not use writing regularly, the oral tradition of passing stories or information down from one generation to the next has played an important part in preserving their culture and history. Whether it be a story about a hero who fought off an enemy attack or the ingredients great great grandmother used in their holiday stew. The existence of an oral tradition has allowed this information to be preserved. As with any scenario where information is passed along verbally, historians have to recognize that the story as it's told today might not be the story that was told 100 years ago. But that does not mean that the information is not valued for what it tells us about the people and culture. When we talk about different type of sources, now let's understand why these sources are important for us to study. In historical studies, sources are the records which grant us insights into the past. Text, images, interview with contemporary witnesses, sound recording and physical artifacts, among others, can all serve as sources. Primary sources exposes students to important historical concepts. Student becomes aware that all his written history reflect an author's interpretation of past events. Through primary sources, the student directly touch the life of people in the past. Primary sources fascinate students because they are real and they are personal. As students use primary sources, they develop important analytical skills. They participate in human emotions and in the value and attitude of the past. Interpreting historical sources helps students to analyze and evaluate contemporary sources. Primary sources, as it is the first hand source, it helps in the understanding the concept better. Whereas secondary sources is an interpretation by an author or writer. It may not provide an authentic information or it may not reach to the audience so connected. But while studying history, it is important to focus on both the type of sources, that is primary as well as secondary. So here we end up for today. The information provided to you all are taken from these websites. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you liked it. For further such videos, please like, share and subscribe my channel. Let's understand the concept. And don't forget to press the bell icon.